Welcome to WiredToHunt's Unconventional Wisdom, where we take one commonly held deer hunting belief and examine an unexpected alternative. Is scent control worth it? I've got a few buddies who would tell you that it's not, who like to argue that it's a huge waste of time, it's a big crock of BS, it's a scam, all that kind of stuff. And that's actually a kind of trendy argument these days. There's a lot of people that are saying, damn it, I'm going out there in my blue jeans and my work boots, just play the wind. You don't need to worry about all the scent control baloney. Forget it, it's just a big thing to make you spend more money for stuff that doesn't work. Go out there, play the wind and deer hunt. That is a pretty popular sentiment these days. It's interesting because I think it's a counter reaction to the opposite sentiment, which really became popular in the last 10 to 20 years, where it's you have to use this thing and you have to use this thing and you have to use this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. And if you don't do that, you're never gonna kill a big buck because you need all of these things. And that I would have killed my big buck if it wasn't for my scent spray, if it wasn't for my ozone generator. So I think we're now seeing the backlash to that idea. So the question is, which one really is bullshit and which one actually is a useful practice to consider? Here's what I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you that the truth from my perspective is somewhere in between. Because of that, I use a combination of different scent control practices while also realizing that none of these things is foolproof. But I take something that I kind of consider the Swiss cheese model approach to scent control. I believe that something like nose jammer or something like ozone or maybe a scent spray a little bit or showering before I go hunting or keeping my clothing in a tote outside and not getting dressed until I get to my car. I think that every one of those things probably can help a little bit. Maybe give me an extra 0.5% or an extra 1% or an extra 5%. I think every one of those little things helps a little bit. But each one of these different scent control practices is like a slice of Swiss cheese. It's got a lot of holes in it still. So if I just use this kind of spray, or if I just sprayed stuff all over me, I think there's holes in that, but I think there's also solid parts that does help. So I'm not gonna depend on any one of these things and claim it's gonna do everything for me. But if I lay this piece of Swiss cheese on top of this piece of Swiss cheese, on top of another piece of Swiss cheese, all of a sudden you start plugging those holes. And now, eventually, I'm gonna get to something that really does help across the board. If I do all of these scent control practices, and I do them right, I'm still not gonna fool every deer. I recognize that. Deer have incredible noses. Deer are amazing survivors. You can't fool them all the time. I'm not gonna say that's a verdict against scent control though. If I can get away with something 1 time out of 10, for me as a deer hunter, that's worth it. Even if that's not a big buck. If I can just get away with fooling one doe on a particular day, that might be the one doe I need to fool in order to get that buck to come walking behind her. Or because she's the doe that if she did blow and explode out of that field, it would send back a whole parade of 15 other deer that were going to come out to where I am. I recognize that I'm not gonna fool every deer, but I want to fool the few deer that I can because every little tiny piece that you can put in your favor is helpful. There's so many variables in the world of whitetails that you cannot control. If I can put a few more things in my favor, I'm gonna take that advantage because I know there's gonna be plenty of other things that do go wrong. So why would I introduce extra things wrong to that equation? I recognize that if you play the wind right, that's gonna put you in the right place most of the time. That's the way to go. You should always be playing the wind. You should always be thinking about ways to make sure that as few deer as possible go downwind of you. Yes, of course, but I've spent a whole hell of a lot of hours in the woods, and I can tell you one thing. Deer don't always go where you want them to. Deer don't always go where you think they're gonna go. So I don't care who you are, you're not always going to be able to pick the right spot and not have deer get downwind of you. It happens. These are wild animals. So why would I not want to try to put myself in a position where I have a safety net when that does happen? It all comes down to a cost-benefit analysis of sorts, right? There's gonna be some people who wanna do everything they can to make sure they've got a little bit better chance. You've gotta weigh the good and the bad. The bad of using scent control products and showering in scent-free stuff and washing your stuff in scent-free products and keeping it outside and getting dressed outside, that's a pain in the butt. It's inconvenient, it takes a lot of extra work, it might cost you more money to buy some of these things. And for some people, those downsides aren't worth it. And you know what? That's okay. If you don't want to deal with that, if that takes some of the fun out of this for you, or if that costs more money than is okay for your budget, then don't do that. I can totally understand that. That's fair, that's reasonable. We all are gonna look at these things differently. On the flip side, if you do have the time, if you do want to make the effort, if you do have the expendable income to buy a few extra things, this is a way you can help yourself. I want to take advantage of those things that can help. I would rather do the little bit of extra work, and I'll put down a little extra money to do that, knowing it's not a foolproof silver bullet solution, but it's going to give me a few more opportunities. That's worth it for me. So that's how I think about scent control. Do I think scent control is bullshit? No. Do I think it's something you have to do? No. The answer lies somewhere in between. It's different for each and every one of us. You've got to figure it out for yourself. If you want more information like this, be sure to tune into the WiredToHunt podcast or the WiredToHunt Foundation's mini-series. We've got new deer hunting know-how every week. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts.